DJ Cream coming with all the slaps.
Welcome to Talking Watch Your Mouth with Khalil Anthony. Talking shit with Khalil Anthony. And today's guests are partially the reason that we're here. Sorry, I'll cut that out. I'll cut that out. Part of the reason that we are here, they are helping us to get to the Scarab. We have Benny and Toby from Black Beacon Sound. How you guys doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah, good.
Good. Yeah.
Good. I guess my first question, because I didn't know, I was thinking about questions yesterday. Where'd you come with the name Black Beacon Sound? Where did that come from?
Haha. That's kind of stolen from a Wes Anderson film, Moonrise Kingdom. And the patch of water the little boy sails across consistently, it's shown on a map to be called Black Beacon Sound.
Right.
And I saw that a long time before we started the label, but it's always been in my head to use that for something. And then it just, when me and Toby set up the label, that's the name we wanted to go with, because it just, I don't know, I've always loved Wes Anderson. I've loved his approach to stuff, his image, his feel in his films and everything. And yeah, it's just, it was a jump off point for us. And so, yeah, it's basically nicked.
We went to and fro with a few different ideas as well, but that was just the recurring. Once it was hooked, couldn't really put anything else on it. So, yeah, you definitely led the way on that though, Benny.
Yeah, and then the Wave logo just fitted with what we wanted to do in terms of breaking. Well, the whole aim of the label from the start has been to give people who we feel deserve more recognition that jump-off point to get to that. Because we knew so many people who were making amazing music and doing amazing things and were just not getting the credit they deserved, not getting the views they deserved, not really getting anything. And so, definitely with the initial releases, it was definitely about pushing those people and giving them the opportunity to put themselves out to a wider public at that point.
Oh, great. Cool. And when did you start the label? How long ago have you guys been working together?
Oh, it's 2016 now.
Yeah.
February 2016, however, we were birthing it about 6 months before.
Okay.
But officially, as it's recorded everywhere, is February 2016, yeah.
Because we were working with a label before in Sheffield, Itchy Pig Records, and then that kind of got wound up. And so we were at a crossroads. I was definitely at a crossroads where it was like I could move back to Liverpool and do some things there. So I had friends setting up a club and various bits that they were asking me to get involved in, but that would require moving back to the city. But me and Toby had built a working relationship within Itchy Pig Records, and I didn't feel like we'd fully explored that. And we'd discussed so many ideas that we'd never got to follow through on with that label. So we had a good talk and decided to go ahead with that, really. So I ended up staying in Sheffield, and that's what we carried on with then, which I'm really glad we did in the end. I feel it was definitely the right decision. But like Toby said, we'd mulled it over for a good 6 months or so before setting forth on it, and then even then it was another 6 to 9 months of getting everything together and in the right place for us before we actually put it out there and making sure we could do it. And then we were setting ourselves the ridiculous target of doing a release a month for the first year, which I don't know how we did that now. We managed it. But yeah, especially with keeping it physical releases as well. That was a stressful time as well.
So you did 12 physical releases in a year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Release a month, just because we had so much music lined up, and a lot of the artists who we had have obviously been sitting on that music for a while already. They hadn't really thought of getting it out any other way than their own means through Bandcamp or whatever else. So we were like, well, look, we'll do it and that. But when we started contacting people, obviously the surge of momentum, they were like, oh, let's do it now. Let's go. And it was like, we just wanted to jump on that and capture that as much as well. So it was like, all right, let's try and do 12 releases in 12 months. And we pulled it off, and then with self-distributing, that meant we were out on the road every month, up and down the country, visiting the record shops to get it out there. And at first they were like, who are these guys? What are they on about? You know, looking at us like we're never going to see them again. You know, the second month they're like, oh, it's you guys again. You're back. And then by the fourth month, they're sort of there with a cup of tea going, hey, we've been waiting for you.
Right.
What you got for us this time?
We're just like lunatics, though, because the second and third times we're going back in and asking for names and staff members and this and who and where. And they're like, who the hell are you? And we're like, no, we spoke to them. We're just at the till, like, losing our head. But yeah, finally, like fourth, fifth, sixth time round, they were like, yeah, you are crazy. Let's go again.
Yeah.
That's great.
It was good because it helped us build that relationship with those shops and that. So because we were back all the time, they got to know us, and we'd start to see them pushing our music more because we went from two people they didn't know at all, who they had no idea where, to all of a sudden it's like, well, we see you every month. We know who you are. We know what you're about. We like what you're doing.
That's cool. And you guys seem to work really well together. Where did you guys meet?
Yeah, so it was at the label previously, but I mean, yeah, it was there, but we just sort of, I guess actually for the beginning, I was just essentially an intern there, just doing a bit of part-time hours, just trying to find my path a little bit, really. But I think we probably bonded over a few nights out, really.
DJ Funk was a key one. Yeah. We went to DJ Funk on a Wednesday in Manchester. A lot of stuff got sorted out on that night and future plans made. And oh man, obviously DJ Funk is just high energy. He's something special. We've been to see him a few times since as well.
We met him. We got a little photo with him, I think, with proper fanboys.
Yeah. And that was one of those nights where it was like, let's definitely do this. Let's really go for it and make this happen.
I think something it stands for as well is the variety we've released kind of shows, again, what we bonded over is a variety of taste in music as well. I think we do think of ourselves as a bit more like sort of selectors rather than just trying to focus on one idea all the time.
Right.
Which is, again, like how I think we probably work quite smoothly with each other because there's everyone has their own standards, but I think, yeah, we've got such a wide spectrum as what we're interested in and like to do. So that helps massively as well.
I mean, that made it a bit difficult at first because, like, the variety of releases, people were like, we thought you were a hip-hop label, and there's like, now you're coming at us with some techno, and then you're coming back with this. And, a few people were like, you need to try and stick to one thing to build your brand. And it was like, that's not what we're trying to do. We'd rather take the longer path, and eventually people will get onto what it is we're trying to do here. Because we didn't want to like cut off all the different types of music we were into. And like some of the labels we massively respect, they don't pigeonhole themselves either. They don't just set themselves up as one thing. It's like, I really love Peanut Butter Wolf Stone's Throw. He covers all sorts of stuff from like, West Coast hip hop, East Coast hip hop, but then he goes right back into the 70s and pulls out like psych albums that have been lost and gets them out, or bands that have been forgotten about but are still making music, and he gets them on board and stuff. And that was very much an ethos to follow at that point as well, where it's like, it may take longer to get there, but it'll definitely be worth it when we do.
Oh, we just feel confident doing that as well, rather than having to focus on one idea. And you've got to put your weight behind something. So if we can do it behind whatever we fancy at the time, then why not as well, really? So.
Yeah, you just said something that hit me because I had another question, but I was thinking, like, people told me my whole life, okay, you should focus on one thing. Why do you think people do that? Like, I've been wondering in my head, like, when I was younger, it would be all the time, like, oh, you should just do this, and I wanted to do everything, right? But
yeah,
small-minded person I came across was always like, focus on one thing. What do you think that's about?
I think people find that easier to digest at that point. They find it easier to get it within their own mental thoughts or whatever. Then it's like, these guys do that, so I know if I go to them or buy them, this is what I'm getting. And it's not everyone's nature to lean towards something a bit more varied than that. When you speak to people, say about what films they're into or what music they're into, they often give you one or two genres and that, and it's you don't always come across people who are that varied that they're prepared to throw themselves into it so much. Even down to, say, nights out. Like, I've got my friends who I go to techno nights with who won't come to hip-hop nights with me because that's not their thing at all. If I, mates who are really into the cinema won't necessarily go to the theatre, even though those two things are very similar things going on. They're quite, adverse to the other medium. So I don't know what it is neurologically in the brain or anything, but I think people find it a lot easier to go, this is that, and I'm comfortable with that. And if you start varying it, so it's like you even go back to Bob Dylan going from acoustic guitar to electric guitar, and people lost their shit over that and started calling him Judas and all sorts. It's like, the man's still doing essentially the same thing, just by a slightly different medium, and it's blown everyone's minds at this point. Yeah. So, I don't know, I think there's something there where people just find it a lot easier to go, this is you, and I'm happy with you doing this.
That's great. Okay, so the next question, I've asked everybody this question. Where did we meet? Because we haven't physically met yet, but...
No.
Remember the first time we ran across each other? Because I think it's different for each one of you.
So weirdly for me, and I went back over this the other day, it was me interviewing you. It's the first time we met.
Exactly.
And that was via emails. And that's how we met. And it was, at the time, you were doing stuff with That Man Monks.
Yeah.
You were working on a play. You had Train out, I think, at the time, or was just out. I think you were still based in America at that point, because you were working on a few things over there. But I just found you like one of the most engaging interviewees I've ever had, because you had so much going on. And it goes back to what we were just talking about. You weren't just doing one thing.
Right.
When I started researching that interview, and, essentially you were presented to me as someone who was making house music and was a vocalist. And that's like just scratching the surface, really, of what you are and what you were doing.
Yeah.
And so, that interview was great. It went on for a good few pages, I remember. And again, it was the fact that you interview some people, and it was so frustrating. Like, you'd ask like a question that would be longer than their answer, because they'd come out with like, yes, that's right, and then not expand at all. And you'd be like, well, that's no good to me. Whereas like you were going into all sorts, and you were picking up on the cues where you'd go, and this and this. And yeah, that's, I don't know, I just initially found you a really fascinating character just because you had so much going on, and it was so varied. And then listening to the music itself, because I was revisiting Junebug recently, because it's been a while since I've listened to that in its entirety, and that really, that floats my boat in the terms of like, it's got that Detroit, Chicago thing going on where there's funk in there, and there's blues in there, and there's techno in there, and it's got a groove throughout it all, and it's got these squelchy noises that really appeal to me, but then it's not too tight. It's got that looseness of jazz to it and everything, and then it's like, man, this is some really, really good music. So that's where we first came across each other, and then since then it's just remained like one of these internet things at the moment, and until the world went crazy, we were going to meet at this point.
Well, we would have been, yeah.
Yeah. That's been delayed again.
I was gonna say, I have another question about delays for us too, but
yeah.
So then, Toby, we pretty much, I want to hear it from your point of view. How did we meet each other?
I mean, I guess I was sitting in a bit of an echo chamber off the back of Benny, because the first time I remember actually communicating with you was when I think I sort of pinged you a message again about your release from Shade Leaf. I think it was it in the trees or Into the Trees?
Oh, In the Trees, yeah.
Which was just mint. I think I heard that back whilst we were at Itchy Pig as well. I think it goes back that far. And I think I just like threw some messages out and asked bit about you, where you were, and you just sort of explained the record a little bit. And it was quite loose really for quite a while, and then as soon as when me and Benny were chatting more about it, probably a couple of years later, I think the hookup came from there really. But I know it stemmed from, because that track's mint. I still play that now. It's such a nice like slow pace, but like such a rich sound. It's cool. It's like 7 minutes long as well, so you just know. Put it on, you can go for your beer or go for your cigarette or something, and it's just such a room pleaser. It's lovely. So I think that was and I was trying to like hassle you for a record or something, I think.
And I didn't send it. I must not have had any. That's the thing, Benny. Or when they tell you that the guy is just a house guy who sings, they don't send you any music to send to people, because I think sometimes. No, I think, that's one thing. I just wanted to say this because I think it's interesting to hear from the side of being a label and putting out more than one genre of music, and then people saying, I want to hear this. And then being an artist, and the only person who's always been super cool is my mom. So it's like, if my mom would have been like, you should just be a mathematician, I would have been an accountant. You know what I mean? Like literally. But everybody was always saying, do this and do that. And I would go back to her, and she's like, just do what you want to do. What do you feel? So one thing I was thinking, Malik, I gotta say Malik's name, right? Because right? Like brilliant guy. But right before we started working together, I think we were talking on email, and I was like, should I do this? Should I work with them, the label? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, why? He's just like, you'll find out later. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, trust your stomach. And I was like, okay. So back to the question, if there's a question. So where did you guys meet Malik?
So he was involved in a very first release we put out. So it's Zen the Sharpshooter, who was always going to be the first release. He did this track every little bit. And that was the final sort of piece in the puzzle for us in starting the label. When we heard that, it was like, right, this has got to be the first release.
Okay.
This is what we've got to go with. And then obviously we've done some work with Scott, that man Monks, and we were like, approached him to do a remix of it. And when I spoke to him, he was like, well, look, I can do a straight up like house version of this, if that's what you want. Or we can go down a more sort of J Dilla, jazzy route. And I know this MC, Malik, who's really cool, and he could get involved. And so that was really the first time we came across him, when Monks introduced him. And then he got on with on the Zen remix, and his flows were just something else, man. It's like when that came back, it was like me and Toby were like, oh my God, this just ups the levels completely. And then obviously when Zen heard it, like it just flipped his mind. He was like, I can't believe someone, because he was very much instrumental at that point. He hadn't even we sort of had to coax him round to having like a lyricist involved then, because he was like, no, he was going down that Dilla route where it's like, I do beats, I do instrumentals, that's what I do. But as soon as he heard Malik, he was like, wow. And so we got speaking to him, and then that progressed with getting him involved in the Zen album. And he got on board with 4 tracks at that point. And each one he came back with, it's just like, he just brings such a different vibe to other people out there. And each sort of flow is slightly different. It's not like, again, he's someone else who you can't just pigeonhole. You can't just say, this is Malik and this is what he does. Because he's got so much other stuff going on as well. Even within his lyricism, he switches it up for the beats. He comes with different approaches each time. He works in an amazing way, and he's really prolific.
Yeah.
And then we finally got to meet him doing a independent label market, which is this organization that do record fairs essentially around the world, but for the small independent labels like us, hooked up with like some of the bigger ones, and one of them was in Paris. So we finally got to hook up with him there. And you'll know yourself, man, when you meet him and you just get chatting to him and everything else, he's just awesome. And he's one of these creative types, he just wants to get involved with stuff. If he feels the vibe, he's on board and he's doing it, and he's fully in. And he's been one of the best people we've ever worked with. He's been involved a lot with the label without even really knowing it. to be honest, because like, yeah, he's been like one of those people who you drives you on when you work with him. He makes, you know, if you start doubting yourself and you start thinking, are we right doing this? Are we pushing it? And then, you know, you can have a conversation with Malik or do something like that. And it just reignites your fire where you're like, yeah, this is right, man. This is cool. Let's go with that. And he just, you know, he crosses a lot of people for us in that way in terms of like links. So obviously with yourself, because like when we were like speaking to you about working with this, I remember saying to Toby, it's like, you know, we'd go for it, but look, like we're a small independent label in England. This is a big step up for us. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but if we don't push ourselves, we don't move forwards. And, you know, it was Malik who sort of gave us that confidence in that as well. And obviously, you know, he's like, Khalil's a great guy to work with. You know, he's full of ideas. He's a creative force. You know, it'll be good for you guys. So yeah, it was just an exciting time for us when this all started up because it, you know, it meant we had to like up our game as well at that point as well. This was like a big step up for us.
Great. Yeah, I just just listening to what you just said, because I was actually in Paris and I just seen Malik headed. I just got back from Paris to Berlin or something, but I was talking to Malik on the phone, and that's when he was just like, yeah, what do you feel in your stomach? Because for me, you know, to be 100% honest, working with a big label or a smaller label, I don't have a preference as long as the people I'm working with respect me as an artist and not like, oh, this is just a voice, right? Like this guy's voice, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like to be 100% for, you know, whoever's listening, this has been the best experience I've had with a label because of the space that we all came from. It's like, okay, we're doing this together for the first time, right? It's my first LP in the house world. Whatever. I don't believe in hierarchies. I believe in people getting together and figuring it out, right? And I've noticed from my own experience, the bigger labels, we don't have that much intimacy around what we're doing. And then it's done and it goes away, if that makes any sense. So I tend to like people. I like people. And if your label is made up of people, right, then it makes more sense for me as a person because I feel appreciated, right? Okay, so let's kind of get into it because I know my mouth, I talk too much. So Scarab, let's, how do we feel about it? It's about to be out in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
And it's been quite a road. I think it's been great. I mean, I'm the kind of person who likes to go through whatever is happening, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, or whatever. But what do you guys feel about the end result, you know? Because we're almost there.
I mean, I think it's amazing. I mean, the music speaks for itself. The breadth of artists who are involved in it have all brought some different flavors to it. So it's got that variation that we love. The way they've worked with the original track. What?
It sounds very collected, like you're saying, but like there's a lot of variety in there. There's a lot of different style, but you listen to it like start to finish. It's a really well collected album, which has come together like better than maybe like I thought because it was a remix album. I mean, sometimes they're just put together as a sort of style of a compilation maybe, but you can listen to this start to finish and it's rich and it's got different directions. Each artist sounds noticeably different but strong in their own sense. Like it's boss. Like really excited for it coming out, man. I think 9 tracks is a good size as well. Good number of tracks to have on there.
I don't think anyone's just approached it as a remix album, and you can tell that listening to it. They've approached it with like an artistic integrity that's beyond like I'm just going to take little bits of this and then give it back. Because you know, sometimes you hear remixes and you can tell there's not much effort gone into it beyond like I've had to do this and now I've done it and there it is. Whereas like this has got a more of a feel of like it's an actual album rather than as Toby said, not a compilation. It's an album that's got its own flow to it. It links to Junebug clearly, but it's its own thing at the same time, which is, you know, to see it grow and to see it take on its own life. And so, you know, as each track came through and listening to it, you know, you're able to get more and more excited by it because you can start piecing it together and you're like, wow, this is something special now. I mean, the only thing I regret at the moment is the position we're in. We've not been able to follow through with some of the other plans we've had in terms of like this. And we've said this before, this should be on like the dance floors now. This should be coming out of sound systems around the world, in clubs. And that is my one regret, is that can't happen, because that is a space I would love to hear this in at the moment. And I would love to see how other people reacted to it in that environment.
Yeah.
And I feel we've kind of been robbed of that a little bit, which I was really looking forward to, is just like being able to stand back and watch other people as they heard this for the first time. That's a little sad, unfortunately, and there's not much we can do about that. I feel it really deserves that, and I hope at some point that happens and we all get to see that moment when we can look across a dance floor and hear that music coming out and just see those people moving, man, because that's, yeah, while it's good to listen to at home and everything, it's like, that's the environment I want to hear it in now. I want a big sound system. I want ideally an open space with the sun coming down, a nice cold beer in my hand, and just being able to look at it and go, yes, this is it.
I think it's gonna happen. The way you just described that, I feel like I'm in the same space. I got a beer too. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to respect everybody's time. I want to also bring this up too. So Benny, you have 2 new people in your house, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your 2 new guests.
Yeah, they're 3 weeks old yesterday. Serafina D and Linus Thomas, born on the 6th of May. They're wonderful. They're great. And they're also very tiring, as newborns are. They're demanding, but we're getting used to it in this house, where I look a little bleary-eyed here because they had us on about an hour and a half cycle of feeding and winding and changing last night because it's hot and they're dehydrated. But they've done amazing. They came early, as twins do, but they've grown so quickly already. And yeah, it's a wonderful change up. Both me and my partner Chloe are really happy with them. And it's a wonderful addition. Yeah, I'm very tired, but very, very happy.
Congratulations. Yeah, I just want to make sure I
Thank
brought
you.
that up, because this has been maybe a year and some change, and we've experienced a lot with like the vinyl place burning up, and then I was supposed to come to Paris and I missed that one trip, and then the pandemic, but there's some great great things, right? 2 babies, twins, the album is finished.
Yeah. We've lined up a couple of charity EPs next, really.
Okay.
It's one of the things we've always been keen on doing is helping out where we can. So like each Friday, we've been donating 50% of our sales from our Bandcamp to various charities during this crisis. But it preceded that. It's like we've, like I don't know how it is elsewhere, but we've had this thing about period poverty, where it's been a big thing where women are basically, paying tax on sanitary products and everything and that. So we had a pledge where every event we did, the toilets in our record shop, every gig, every record fair, we stock it with sanitary products free to use. And that's been one of the things we just do. Got some mixed reactions when we've been like in Paris and Brussels doing it, and we've approached like the female organizer and gone, here's a box of sanitary products. Can you put them in the women's toilets for us, please? And they're like, what? It's like, we've got this thing where we period poverty, bring an end to it. And they're like, oh, okay. And they come round to it. But we like to do stuff where we can help others through it. And with the next releases we've got after this, we've got 2 where we'll be donating 100% of the proceeds to charities that are really helping in tackling the corona crisis right now, and need that support because they're quite frankly not getting it from our government or other ones really. So even if it's a small scale, it's something it's stuff we like to do. We like to be a bit more than just like oh, it's just this, it's just the music or whatever. It's like we're in an opportunity where we can make a difference. Then you've got to take advantage of that, and you've got to do that, because it just makes the world a better place for everyone. And if everyone does little bits, the cumulative effect is great. But if nobody does anything, then we just stay in the same place. Yeah. So that'll be next for us. And then I don't know, Toby, if you want to pick up on some of the other plans as well.
Yeah, so I'm sure you probably can feel the same, because like trying to plan for the future. The immediate future is still quite tough on what's going on, but we're trying to get there. And the next, after the charity stuff, the next like 6-9 months, we're just trying to tail out the end of the year. We've got these dig deep mix sessions going on, which we've had to sort of find new months to put them in, have like a month apart, but that should lead us to the end of the year. Maybe trying to plan something bigger for the New Year's Eve version, depending how soon or if we can record further into the autumn. And then
just quickly pick up on that. That's where we get DJs to come down to the record shop, and then we give them an hour to dig. We give them an hour to prepare what they've picked out, and then they record a mix for us of what's available in the shop, and then we put that out there. So it's a way of pushing those collectives and those DJs, like getting their mix out there and showing what they can do. But it also gives us the opportunity to show off what's available in the shop at that point.
That's great.
Yeah, just heralding a lot of local talent and friends and family as well. Again, kind of how we had those 12 releases in the first year. Yeah, there's just so much out there. There's so much out there that deserves to be heard. Before the next guy, who knows? But there's just a lot out there. So that's kind of endorsing that. And then into next year, if we feel like there's some sort of structure, we've potentially got 3 or 4 releases, sort of mainly sort of digital approach, but we might we're thinking of new ideas how to promote those releases as well, where like sort of merch ideas and live visual events. Again with the problems with vinyl and distribution at the minute. Just trying to build on more different styles of projects, really, rather than just putting out digital releases. So
we even spoke before the crisis about the vinyl thing, because it's like, I don't know, in terms of like what we're doing with like the period poverty thing and everything and that, it's putting out records and then trying to be environmentally friendly are not things that go together. Really, it's like the record industry in terms of the actual physical product. It's you know, it is a big pollutant. It's a, you know, the chemical, and then the nature of transporting it around the world and everything. And the more we've talked, it's something that like we're trying to think of a way that it's like, if the planet's going the way it's going, that's not really sustainable at this point. It's not something that will stay forever, unfortunately. But I love vinyl. I've been buying it all my life. I've got a record shop now with tons of the stuff. But as a label, it's like we're trying to explore other ways of getting music out there that have less of an impact, but still make it as accessible. Because digital is great and all that, but it's coming back to like how people consume stuff. People still like a physical product. People like to be able to go into a shop, pick something up, feel it, look at it, and buy it. And so we're trying to find ways and means of still doing that, but reducing the impact we have on the world around us. And I think that's the next leap for the music industry. Because we went to 2 years ago, we were at Amsterdam Dance Event, and we went to a talk by the head of R&S Records about running a label and everything. And he kind of threw this in at the end where he was like, you know, this whole thing about vinyl and its impact. And me and Toby sort of picked up at that point, because that's a conversation we've been having for a while. And it's like, what's this guy about to say about it? And we're thinking, you know, as a big label, R&S, they must have plans in place and that. But he basically ended by going, well, who knows what can be done about that? So hopefully some of you guys come up with some ideas. And it's like, what? Surely you should be coming up with this as well at this point. It's like, you know, it's R&S.
People inside, like, arms up, questions, please. Yeah.
It's like if R&S Records can't be coming up with something, and they're huge, man. It's like, you know, it's a big challenge. I think it's a big challenge for the industry. And people still attach that cultural worth to vinyl. It's almost like the music is worth more if it's on vinyl, and that's something we have to get past, because it's not. The music is the music. However you listen to it does not lessen its impact or, you know, how good it is, unless it's sound quality, obviously, in which case that's a different issue. But like, it shouldn't mean more just because it's on vinyl, because there are plenty of people making bland music that's on record. Doesn't mean it's any more interesting than those who are not getting to release it on vinyl and still making incredibly interesting, thought-provoking stuff. So it's definitely something we're talking about. We haven't got any answers yet. It's something we keep coming back to, but you know, we'll get there eventually with it.
There's a cauldron of ideas forming, but one thing we know is there's only so many T-shirts people will buy that says their name on it. So you could have a T-shirt out with every artist you ever know. Your wardrobe would be full, but like, how many times can you go buy a T-shirt? So yeah, it's the obvious choice is that sort of basic merch, I guess. But it's just trying to get your head rattled and think of new ideas people might want. It's stirring a pot, something like that.
Well, that's great that you're thinking about it, right? Because I think innovation is where we all actually have to be now, because the world is so different and we've been doing this for so long. But it's like, it's an opportunity, right? To, like you said, stir up the pot and figure out something that can help the planet and help ourselves. So we're not just relying on one thing, right? Cool. So I wanted to say thank you to you guys. Before we go, if you had any last words you want to share with the people?
Yeah, I would just say it's been amazing working with you and everyone else on this. It's, you know, it's been a wonderful process for us to go through. We've learned and gained a lot from this. I just hope everyone enjoys Scarab as much as we do when it comes out on the 9th of June, because it is an amazing album. It's, you know, everyone has pulled it out the bag on this. And we just can't wait for people to listen to it, man.
It's quite ironic during this pandemic that actually it's such an international release. Like, hopefully should go to 4 corners of the earth like it really should, because that's going to be exciting to see that and see how it sort of develops and the reaction, because it's awesome for that as well. Properly worldwide.
Yeah. I mean, I think my last word is that I kind of sometimes am a little bit too anal where I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be like this, and but then there's a part of me obviously that is open. And with this release, I felt it from the first time I heard when Dave got into it, right? And we started hearing some of the masters. I was like, woo, this is crazy. So I just really hope that it does what it's supposed to do. Like, I think sometimes we think the vinyl is going to push it, or the PR person, and and it's like, let's just hope. I pray that the music speaks for itself. And it, brings us back whatever gifts it's supposed to bring back, right? So,
man.
Cool. So, thank you so much for being here on Talking Watch Your Mouth with Khalil Anthony. Talking shit with Khalil Anthony. Have a good day.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.